Have you ever felt that something inside you is changing, as if life is trying to show you a different way, but you still can't see clearly, as if an invisible force were pulling you to something bigger, but at the same time, everything around you seemed confusing? If this is happening to you, pay attention, because this is not a coincidence. It can be a sign that you are being called to something much bigger than you think. Many times, when this call arises, it does not come clearly. On the contrary, it appears as restlessness, as a feeling that the life you have today no longer fills you as before. You begin to realize that some things have lost their shine, that certain conversations seem empty, that routines that once made sense now seem automatic and without purpose. You feel that there is something else waiting for you, but you still don't know exactly what it is. And this is the point where many people lock. They feel the call, but ignore. They perceive the signs, but they doubt. Because leaving the comfort zone, answering this call and taking a step towards the unknown requires courage. Carl Jung studied this phenomenon deeply and found that before a great transformation, our unconscious mind begins to prepare us for it. But often we resist. We resisted because we were conditioned to seek security, then known paths to avoid changes. But here is the truth that no one tells you. If you are feeling this call, it won't disappear. The more you ignore it, the stronger it will become. And do you know what happens when you resist this call? Life begins to give you increasingly evident signs. People who are not aligned with this new cycle begin to move away. Old opportunities disappear. You start to feel an inexplicable need for change, as if you were in a space that no longer belongs to you. This can be scary at first, because the rational mind wants to understand everything. It wants to predict the future, weather guarantees. But the soul knows that some things need to be felt before they are understood. Now I want you to stop and reflect. Is this sense of restlessness that you have felt lately not exactly that? Is this discomfort an invitation from the universe so that you finally wake up to who you really are? Because when this call happens, you have two choices. You can ignore it and keep living the same life as always, or you can accept it and allow this transformation to happen. If you feel that this message resonates inside you, continue with me, because in the next passage of this video, I will show you how to recognize the signs that you are being called to something bigger, and how to respond to this call consciously, without fear and without resistance. What I will reveal you now can completely change the way you see this phase of your life. But before we continue, I want to know about you. Have you ever felt this call? Have you been through times when everything seemed to lose meaning, as if the universe was trying to direct you to a new path, but you didn't know exactly where to go? If so, tell me here in the comments. I want to know your experience, because sharing this can help you see this process more clearly and at the same time inspire other people who are living this phase now. And if this message is resonating inside you, leave your like right now. This may seem small, but it is much more powerful than you think. When you enjoy this video, YouTube understands that this content is relevant and shows to more people who are also feeling this call and need to hear this message now. And if you are not subscribed to the channel yet, click the subscribe button and activate notifications, because here we talk about spiritual awakening, self-knowledge, and the signs that the universe sends us. If this video has appeared to you, it was no coincidence, and the next content will help you even more to understand what is happening in your life. Now, let's go straight to what really matters: how to recognize the signs that you are being called to something bigger and how to respond to this call consciously. What I will show you now can completely change the way you see this phase of your life. Do you feel that lately nothing more seems to make sense as before? Activities that once gave you pleasure now seem empty. Conversations that were once natural now seem to be forced, and a sense of restlessness grows inside you without explanation. If this is happening, know that you are not alone. Many people go through this process, but few understand what is really happening. Most believe something is wrong, that they are depressed, unmotivated, or lost. But what if I told you that this sensation can you be the first sign that you are being called to something much bigger? This call does not happen at once. It does not appear like a clear voice saying what you should do or where to go. On the contrary, it starts with subtle signs, small changes in your behavior, your perception of reality, the way you feel the world around you. At first, it can be almost imperceptible. You start to wonder about the life you lead. You realize that some people don't do you as well as before. You feel that certain environments drain you instead of energizing you. Over time, this intensifies. Those empty conversations that once seemed normal now irritate you. The places that were once comfortable begin to look suffocating. That routine that once made sense now seems only a repetitive cycle, without purpose. And then comes the doubt. Is it me who am changing, or is the world around me that is different? The truth is that this discomfort is a clear sign that your consciousness is expanding. You are starting to realize that reality is not as limited as you have always believed. You are leaving the autopilot, questioning patterns, seeing beyond the surface. But the big question is, what do you do when you realize that your life no longer fits what has always been? And this is where many people conflict. Because on the one hand, there is an internal call saying that they need to change, grow, evolve. But on the other hand, there is a huge fear of releasing what is familiar. The ego resists. He tries to rationalize, tries to convince you that everything is okay to continue as it is, that it is safer to maintain what is already known than risking the unknown. But deep down, you know you can't ignore it anymore. And this is where many people start to enter a period of confusion. They feel displaced, as if they were between two worlds, the old one, which no longer makes sense, and the new, which has not yet been completely revealed. This phase can be uncomfortable. You may feel that you are losing your identity, that you no longer know who you are or what you want. It may seem that everything is crumbling, that you are moving away from people, that your life is stagnant. But the truth is that none of this is a mistake. This is a process. Carl Jung called this phase of the dark night of the soul, a period of deep transition where everything that is no longer true in his life begins to dissolve. And that can be scary, because it is often not you who choose changes. They happen spontaneously. People who are not aligned with their new path begin to move away. Interests that were once essential lose the meaning completely. You may even feel an inexplicable need to isolate yourself, to spend more time alone, to reflect on your life. And this isolation, for many, is the most difficult point of this process, because they taught us to believe that being alone is bad, which means failure or rejection. But what if, in fact, this isolation is the preparation for something greater? What if the universe is creating space in your life so that something new can arise? What if this feeling of emptiness is just a range between its old version and its version that is about to be born? The problem is that many people resist this process. They try to cling to the past, force connections that no longer exist, keep living a life that no longer reflects who they are. And this resistance only prolongs suffering. Because the truth is that when your soul is calling you to something bigger, you cannot simply ignore. You may even try to continue as before, but something within you knows that this is no longer your truth. So the question you need to ask yourself is, will you keep resisting, or will you finally accept that this transition phase is a gift and not a punishment? If this message is resonating with you, continue with me, because in the next excerpt from this video, I will show you how to identify clearly if this call is real and what you can do to answer it consciously. What I will reveal you now can completely change the way you see this phase of your life. Carl Jung, one of the greatest scholars of the human psyche, has spent decades analyzing the deep processes of inner transformation and noticed a pattern. Before a big change, the unconscious begins to give signs that something new is about to emerge. But these signs are not clear at first. They come in the form of restlessness, in the form of subtle discomfort that is slowly growing until it becomes impossible to ignore. He believed that the human being does not live only in the material world, but also in a symbolic world where our soul communicates through emotions, dreams, and intuitions. When we are about to enter a new cycle, our unconscious already knows this even before our rational mind perceive. And that's why you begin to feel internal changes before anything really happens in the outside world. Life may still seem the same to others, but inside you, something has changed. You no longer see things the same way. And the more you try to force yourself to follow the old way, the more you feel something is wrong. But what does this call really mean? How to know if he is real or just a passenger moment of doubt? According to Jung, this call is the beginning of the individuation process, a self-discovery path where you begin to break free from external influences and recognize who you really are. But this path is not easy. It requires you to question everything that once seemed right. It requires you to face the parts of yourself that have been repressed, to accept truths that may be uncomfortable. And this process can be lonely, because not everyone around you will be prepared to understand this change. Jung called this moment of transition from the dark night of the soul, a period where our ancient identity begins to dissolve, to give way to something new. But, as in any rebirth, there is pain in the process. There is uncertainty. There is a period of emptiness between who you were and who you are becoming. But this void should not be feared, because it is the necessary space for the new version of you to be born. And this is where many people conflict, because when this call happens, it is not accompanied by an instruction manual. It doesn't say exactly where you should go or what you should do. It just takes you familiar and puts you in a space where you need to trust. And trusting the invisible can be one of the biggest challenges for the human mind. But there are ways to identify if this call is real. If you are feeling that something inside you has changed, you realize that you can no longer ignore this impulse to something bigger. It is because the process has begun. You may try to postpone. You may try to pretend nothing has changed, but at some point you will have to face this truth. So the big question is, what are you going to do with it? If you feel that this message makes sense to you, continue with me, because in the next excerpt from this video, I will show you what are the main signs that indicate that you are being called to something larger and how you can prepare for this transition in a way conscious. What I will reveal you now can completely change the way you see this phase of your life. This call you feel is not a mistake. It is not just a passing time of uncertainty, nor a simple discomfort for no reason. He is a clear sign that his consciousness is evolving. Something within you has awakened, and now it is no longer possible to live on autopilot, following a script that was imposed on you, without question, without purpose. Your spirit is asking for something bigger. But the big question is, are you ready to accept this change? The truth is that when this call arises, it comes with challenges. He forces us to look at our lives honestly and ask, I'm really living the life I want to live? And this question may be uncomfortable, because we often realize that we are stuck with routines that make no sense, that we are surrounded by people who no longer vibrate as often as us, who are holding to the beliefs that limit our growth. This call forces us to face the truth about who we really are and who we are becoming. But answering this call is not easy. This is because the human mind is programmed to seek safety, stability, predictability. Any change represents a threat to the ego because it has built itself based on what is already known. And that is why many people are afraid. Fear of giving up what no longer makes sense, fear of releasing relationships that no longer nourishes them, fear of following an unknown path. But what few understand is that the real danger is not in change. It is in stagnation. Carl Jung said that what you resist persists. That is, the more you try to ignore this call, the more it intensifies. The more you try to convince yourself that everything is fine to continue where it is, the more life gives you signs that something needs to change. And these signs can come in many ways. It can be a feeling of constant dissatisfaction, an inexplicable desire to seek new ways, a feeling that everything that once made sense now seems lifeless. It may be the removal of people who were once close to, the loss of opportunities that once seemed right, or even unexpected events that force you to get out of your comfort zone. The universe always finds a way to remind you that you are ready for something bigger. And here is the most important question. This call, and it is for anyone, not everyone is prepared to meet this invitation. Many people choose to ignore it, choose to distract themselves, choose to remain trapped in what is familiar. But those who have the courage to follow this call, to face their own shadows, to allow themselves to change, are those who really discover a new level of consciousness, a new purpose, a new way of living. But for that, you must be willing to give up the old man. There is no evolution without transformation. And transformation means letting go. Let go what no longer serves. Let the old versions of yourself no longer make sense. Let the stories you told yourself about who you were. Because for something new to be born, something old needs to die. This is the natural cycle of life, and resisting it only brings suffering. So now I want you to ask yourself, what within me no longer makes sense? What am I holding on for fear of change? Am I ready to answer this call and allow this transformation to happen? If these words have resonated inside you, continue with me, because in the next excerpt from this video, I will show you how to recognize the clear signs that your transformation has begun and what you can do to flow with this process instead of resisting it. What I will reveal you now can completely change the way you see this phase of your life. Have you noticed how when a big change is about to happen, life seems to push you into a state of deep questioning, as if suddenly what made sense before would look strange and distant? You look around and realize that some people no longer understand you, that certain places no longer bring you the same energy, which previously comforting routines now look a weight. You feel that something inside you is different, but at the same time you can't explain exactly what is changing. And this feeling can be confusing, it may seem empty, it may even bring a certain anguish. But what if, instead of seeing this as a problem, would you start seeing as an invitation to something bigger? This discomfort, this feeling that you no longer fit your own life, is not a mistake. It is not a punishment. It is not unlucky. In fact, it is a sign that your consciousness is expanding, that you can no longer live automatically, following a script that was not written by you. Life is calling you a new path, but to move on, you need to be willing to abandon what no longer resonates with who you are becoming. And here comes an important detail. The human being is afraid of the unknown. Our mind has been programmed to seek security, to cling to what is familiar, even if this family member does not make us happier. And that is why so many people resist this call. They feel that something needs to change. But instead of embracing this transformation, they desperately try to hold on what is escaping. They continue in relationships that no longer make sense, insist on careers that no longer fill them, maintain habits that do not contribute to their evolution. But do you know what happens when you ignore this call? The universe begins to shake you harder. Think about it. How many times have you felt that life was trying to show you a new way, but did you ignore the signs? How many times did you realize that something was no longer working, but kept insisting? And what happened next? Most likely, the universe has found a way to force you to change. Perhaps it was through the removal of people, the closure of cycles, the emergence of unexpected challenges. Because when you don't listen to subtle signs, life finds a way to make you pay attention. And that's why many people come into crisis right now. They feel that everything around it is crumbling, but do not realize that this collapse is necessary. Before reconstruction, deconstruction always comes. Before a new chapter begins, you need to close the old one. But as we humans have attachment, we often interpret this phase as something negative. The rational mind wants to understand everything now, wants immediate answers, whether guarantees that everything will work out. But the spiritual awakening does not work that way. Carl Jung said that who looks out dreams, who looks inside awakens. And maybe that's exactly what is happening to you now. Perhaps life is putting you in this moment of confusion, not to punish you, but to make you stop and look inside, to make you reflect on your choices, about your dreams, what really makes sense to you. Because deep down, you already know that it can no longer continue to be who it was. You have already felt that there is something bigger waiting for you, but to access this, you need to make room. So now what do you stop for a moment and ask yourself, is this transition phase not actually a gift? Could you, instead of fighting this change, simply trust the process and allow life to take me where I really need to be? If this message is playing something inside you, continue with me, because in the next part of this video, I will show you how to turn this transition phase into a growth opportunity, and how to understand the signals that indicate that you are ready for this next level of your life. What I will reveal you now can completely change the way you see this phase of your journey. Think of an eagle at the top of a mountain. Since she was born, she has been protected inside her nest, fed by her parents, surrounded by everything she needed to survive. But there comes a time when Mother Eagle does something that may seem cruel to the human eyes. She pushes her puppy out of the nest. At first, he falls. His wings are not yet completely ready, and the wind hits hard against his body. It seems that he will fall, that everything is lost, that there is no hope. But then something extraordinary happens. At the last moment, instinctively, he begins to beat his wings. In the beginning, they are clumsy, insecure movements, but as insisting, its wings are strengthened. It discovers the wind under its body and finally flies. And you? Is life pushing you out of your nest so that you discover your true strength? Does this discomfort you feel now, this feeling of being groundless without direction, is the phase before the flight? Because that's exactly how it happens when we are being called to something bigger. The universe pushes us away from what is comfortable, out of what is predictable. He forces us to face the unknown, to feel the wind beating against us, to have that moment of uncertainty. But all this happens because it is in the middle of the fall that we find out that we can fly. This eagle metaphor is powerful because it shows us something that most people do not realize. Discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong, but a sign of growth. You cannot learn to fly if it continues to cling to the nest. You cannot access your true power if you remain attached to what is already known. If you feel that you are falling, everything is crumbled around you, maybe it's because you are exactly at this transition phase. Perhaps what seems to be a collapse is actually the beginning of your freedom. Another amazing example to understand this process is that of the butterfly. At first, it is just a caterpillar, crawling around the world, living within a limitation that seems to be its only reality. But then one day, something changes inside her. She feels the call of transformation and withdraws from the world to enter a cocoon. And inside this cocoon, something impressive happens. She literally dissolves. Its cells crumble, its ancient form ceases to exist, and a new structure begins to form. But outside, it seems that nothing is happening. It seems that the cocoon is still lifeless. But inside, the transformation is happening at the deepest level possible. And when the time comes to leave the cocoon, the butterfly needs to go through another big challenge. She needs to fight to break the shell. She needs to strive to make way for the new life. And this struggle is essential. If someone tried to help her, if he opened the cocoon to her, her wings would not strengthen enough, and she would never be able to fly. It is through resistance, the struggle to leave the old state, that its wings gain strength and it finally discovers its true potential. Now think of you. Is this phase of confusion, this period in which everything seems uncertain, is not its cocoon actually? Does this feeling of being lost, not knowing which way to go, is not just the transition between its old version and its new version? Is what you call crisis is not actually your metamorphosis? Carl Jung said that nothing changes until it becomes conscious. That is, until you realize the meaning behind this process. Until you understand that this phase is not the end but a new beginning, you will continue to resist. But when you accept that you are in the middle of your transformation, something changes inside you. You stop fighting the process and start flowing with it. You realize that this discomfort is not here to destroy you, but to prepare you. And that's exactly what I want you to understand now. If the universe is taking you from where it is, if it is moving you away from certain people, if he is closing doors that once looked safe, it is because something bigger is waiting for you. But to access this new level, you need to be willing to release what no longer serves you. Just like the eagle that needs to abandon the minnow to fly. Just like the butterfly that needs to break the cocoon to live its new form. So now I want you to stop and reflect. Is this phase you are living not exactly what you needed to grow? Does, instead of seeing this as a problem, could you start seeing as a gift? If this message resonated inside you, continue with me, because in the next passage of this video, I will show you how you can use this phase to your advantage, how to accelerate this transformation process, and how to recognize the signs that your new phase is about to start. What I will reveal you now can completely change the way you see this phase of your life. If you feel this call within you, the worst thing you can do is ignore it. This impulse has not come to nothing. It is not by chance. You are being guided to a new level of consciousness for a higher purpose, but to access it, you need to stop resisting. And how to do this in practice? How to transform this feeling of restlessness and confusion into clarity and growth? The answer is to start acting consciously and aligned with this new phase of your life. The first step is to listen to your intuition. The problem is that most people were taught to ignore this inner voice. From an early age, we are conditioned to believe that logic and reason are superior, that we should follow external rules, that we must do what they expect from us. But what if the true wisdom was already within you all the time? And if, instead of looking for answers outside, would you start looking inside? Intuition speaks to you all the time, through sensations, emotions, subtle signs. But to hear it, you need to create moments of silence. You need to learn to connect with yourself. One of the most effective ways to do this is through meditation. And here I'm not just talking about sitting in lotus position and trying to empty the mind. Meditation can simply be a moment of absolute presence. It can be a silent walk where you only watch your thoughts without judging them. It may be a moment of the day you close your eyes, breathe deeply and ask yourself, what is my soul trying to tell me? You would be surprised by the answers you can receive when you really allow yourself to listen. Another extremely powerful exercise is to write about your emotions. Take a notebook and start recording everything that is going through your mind. No filters, without censorship, without the need to make sense. Just write. Put out your doubts, your anguish, your deepest desires. Writing is an amazing tool for organizing your thoughts and accessing parts of your unconscious that would otherwise be hidden. Often, the answers you seek so much begin to emerge in the middle of written words. In addition, this transition phase is the perfect time to seek new knowledge. If you feel that your life is changing, that your conscience is expanding, then it's time to feed your mind with information that supports this growth. Read books on spirituality, the awakening of conscience, about deep psychology. Watch content that expands your worldview to help you see this transformation as a natural process. The more you deepen self-knowledge, the more you understand what is happening inside you. And a crucial point, be open to new experiences. If you feel this call, it means that something inside you wants to get out of the comfort zone. So, start exploring. Try new things. Go to different places. Talk to people who inspire you. Often, transformation happens in the midst of an unexpected experience when you allow yourself to get out of the standard and see life otherwise. But maybe you're wondering, what if I'm afraid? What if I don't know where to start? This fear is normal. It is part of the process. But here is the key. Don't expect to have all the answers before you act. Clarity comes with the movement. When you start to take small steps, the path begins to reveal yourself. When you open to the new, the universe responds by sending signs, opportunities, meetings that show you that you are on the right track. And remember, the more you accept this process, the faster the answers will come. There is nothing wrong with feeling afraid, having doubts, not knowing exactly where all this is taking you. But there is something much more powerful than fear, the confidence that this call would not have arisen if you were not ready for it. So now I want you to stop for a moment and ask yourself, am I ready to stop resisting and start aligning myself with this call? If this message has played something inside you, continue with me, because in the next excerpt from this video, I will show you how this transformation, it can definitely impact your life, and what are the signs that you are ready to take the next step on this journey. What I will reveal you now can completely change the way you see this phase of your life. When you understand that this call is real, everything changes. The sense of confusion, which once seemed a weight, begins to become clarity. You realize that you are not alone, that this process is not random, and that in fact, the universe is guiding you to something much bigger. Life is reorganizing everything around it, creating space for new experiences, new connections, and a new level of consciousness. But there is an essential point in this process. The final choice is always yours. You can continue to ignore the signs, pretending that nothing is happening, clinging to what is familiar. Or you can take the first step and answer this call. And this choice makes all the difference. Because resisting means living in conflict. It means continuing to feel that something is not right, keeping insisting on paths that no longer make sense, continuing to fight a flow that inevitably will take you to where you need to be. But when you accept this call, when you stop resisting and start flowing with life, it all starts to fit. The answers that once seemed distant begin to emerge. The opportunities you didn't even imagine appear on your way, and especially you feel an internal relief, a sense of peace, because you are finally in tune with your essence. Think about it. How many times in your life have you been afraid to change? But when you finally took courage, you realized that it was exactly what you needed. How many times did something that seemed like a loss turn out to be a great gift? This process you are living now follows this same logic. What looks like an end can be a fresh start. What seems confusing now later will make total sense. But for this to happen, you need to trust. And here comes a crucial point. Trust does not mean absence of fear. Trust means acting even with fear, knowing that the universe is supporting you. You don't have to have all the answers now. You don't have to know exactly where this path will take you. You just need to take the first step. Carl Jung said that who looks out, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens. And perhaps this is the moment of your awakening. Maybe everything that is happening in your life is now an invitation to look inside and find out the truth about who you really are. Because deep down, you already know that you can no longer be who it was before. You feel it. You realize that something has changed inside you, and this change cannot be ignored. But there is something important that you need to understand. Not everyone around you will understand this transformation. Some people will ask you, will tell you that you are exaggerating, that you are thinking too much. Some connections may weaken, some friendships may distance themselves. And this can be painful, because we are social beings, we seek belonging, we want to be understood. But here is the truth. Not everyone is ready for this journey. And that's fine. Each has its own time, its own process. And if some people don't follow your change, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It only means that their paths are separating so that new connections can arise. And this is one of the great lessons of this process, learning to release what no longer resonates with your new phase. Relayering does not mean abandoning, does not mean cutting ties. It only means accepting that some things can no longer be part of your journey. And instead of seeing it as a loss, you can start to see as a realignment. What you need to stay will be. What you need to go will. And what is coming will be even greater than you think. And now, I want you to stop for a moment and reflect. Will you keep ignoring this call, clinging to what no longer makes sense, resisting the flow of life? Or will you accept that this moment of transition is a gift, an opportunity to finally live the life you were born to live? If this message has played something inside you, continue with me, because in the next excerpt from this video, I will show you how to know if this transformation phase is coming to an end, and what are the clear signs that you are ready to take the next step on your journey. What I will reveal you now can completely change the way you see this phase of your life. If you feel you are being called to something bigger, don't ignore it. This call has not arose by chance. It is not a simple random thinking or meaningless restlessness. Her soul already knows the way. She already understood that the time has come to change, to grow, to evolve. Now, you just have to take the first step. And this first step, it is the most important. It requires courage, requires confidence, requires you to stop doubting yourself and start believing that there is a greater purpose behind everything you are feeling now. Many people spend their entire lives ignoring this call. They feel the signs, realize that something needs to change, but cling to what is comfortable, what is familiar. And over time, this resistance becomes frustration, an invisible weight that prevents them from feeling full. But you don't have to go that way. You have the choice to accept this transformation and allow your true essence to flourish. And I know it can be scary. I know it may seem risky to leave behind an old version of yourself, give up some certainties, accept that life can be bigger than you imagined. But what if, instead of focusing on the fear of the unknown, would you start seeing it as an opportunity? And if, instead of seeing this moment as an end, would you start seeing it as a rebirth? Carl Jung said that until you become conscious, the unconscious will direct your life and you will call you destination. This means that as long as you keep ignoring this call, while continuing to follow patterns that no longer make sense, while insisting on paths that your soul already knows, that they are not yours, you will continue to feel stuck, displaced, dissatisfied. But the moment you accept this awakening, the moment you begin to act with conscience and purpose, it all starts to change. What once seemed confusing begins to make sense. What once seemed like a problem begins to reveal itself as an opportunity. What once seemed like a crisis begins to be seen as a portal for a new level of your life. And if there is something you need to take from this video, that's it. Trust the process. You don't have to have all the answers now. You don't have to know exactly how everything will happen. You just need to believe that the universe wouldn't have put this call inside you if you weren't ready for it. So now, I want you to make a choice. Will you keep ignoring this call by pretending not to feel this need for change? Or will you accept that this transformation is part of your way and finally taking the first step? If this message resonated inside you, tell me here in the comments, I accept my call. I want to see how many people are ready for this journey of transformation. And if this video made sense to you, leave your like right now. This is much more important than you think. When you interact with this content, YouTube understands that this theme is relevant and shows to more people who are also going through this awakening. And if you are not already subscribed to the channel, click the subscribe button and activate notifications, because in the next video, I will show you how to identify the clear signals that the universe is guiding you to this new path and how to act conscious way to accelerate its transformation. Now click on the video that is appearing on the screen and continue this journey with me. What you will find now may be exactly what was missing for you to understand what is happening in your life.